Hello, everybody. Welcome to The Reason We Learn. I'm your host, Deb Philman, and this is another episode of CommonCore Diva Deep Dives. With me today, our CommonCore Diva, Lynne Taylor. How are you today, Lynne?
I am doing fine, Miss Deb. How about you?
I'm doing great. That's what I say to you every time. How are you? I'm fine. Do you
Yeah,
believe me?
I'm fine till you start telling stuff, and then it's like, oh crap, am I really
Yeah.
fine?
You know what I need? I need the backdrop. This is what I really want. I want to make a
Okay.
background of the flames. You know the
Oh
little
yeah.
meme of the guy sitting at the table? This is fine with the cup of coffee. I
Yeah.
absolutely want that to be my backdrop of just flames. And I'm sitting here with a cup of coffee that says this is fine.
Yep.
And
Nothing to
every deep
see.
dive, that's what we'll use.
Yep. Nothing to see here. Just move along.
That's right. Well, we are here today.
Oh.
As we always are, we come to you when Lynne has come up out of a rabbit hole. She's a rabbit hole diver, and when she's come up out of one of those holes, says, "Hello, I need to tell you something I found down there." Right,
Yep.
and so here we are, and this is the tale of how what would seem to be just a innocent purchase of a utility company by another born company, and nothing to see here, move along, not important, is actually very important. And one of the ways on the state by state level that the global agenda drivers are coming up from the bottom to control all the things and how they connected to education. So, of course, the channel is devoted to education. Lynne goes looking, is this touching on education? Guess what it is?
Yep. Absolutely.
So, I want to disclaim before we begin, real quick. Lynne and I talked about this briefly. What we're presenting to you is not, we're not suggesting that hundreds of people are meeting in a dark room going, let's get them. No, what we're saying is there is a much larger agenda than any of the individuals involved in any of these conversations or transactions. That agenda has a life of its own at this point, and that without, if we here on the ground don't question these things, that's how it takes shape, that's how it perpetuates, that's most people don't see beyond the surface, and they're just doing their jobs, or they're going along with things because they're told to. It's only a tiny number of people guiding the actual agenda. Okay. So I just want to be very clear. We're not presenting things to you going, this is all some giant elaborate plan. No, but this is what it looks like when a tiny group of people manage to put an agenda in place that has touch points on millions of people's lives and jobs, and then they stop asking questions.
Exactly. Thank you. Very well put. Well, let me tell you how all this got started, Deb. Probably a few months ago, I got this letter in the mail from our energy company, which is North Carolina Power, which is now Dominion Energy, which is housed in Virginia. And it was saying, oh, well, we're going to sell the company to this big other company. And here's the name of it. It was EP Holdings by Enbridge. And I'm thinking, okay. And then the whole letter was based on the fact of we're going to have public hearings. And if you have a problem with us selling our energy company for the entire state, then you need to show up. You need to have all kinds of documentation and so on and so forth, putting the burden of proof on you, the person, not the entity that wants to buy our energy. And when I say energy, I mean electricity and gas and anything in between that would also control our water as well. And so I'm sitting here thinking, okay, well, I just don't have time to go. And it's an energy sale. Big deal. Well, when I got the second one, I don't know, Deb, there was something about the way it wasn't worded any different. It was just the fact of, hey, we're having this public hearing and you really need to show up. And then I got to looking where it says, okay, Enbridge. And for some reason, a little bell went off. Don't ask me why. As a little bell went off, and I thought, well, I wonder if this is connected, first of all, to globalism, because we're selling our energy without we the people of North Carolina or whatever state this is happening in, because it's not exclusive to North Carolina. I wonder if this has anything to do not only with globalization, but how does it touch on education, if it touches on education? And it wasn't till I started looking at Enbridge, which is housed out of Canada, and has holdings all over the globe as well as here in the United States, to where I see, oh, well, we have STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math for families, not just in schools, but families community wide. Well, we know that STEM is part of the UNESCO Sustainable Development Goals. Okay, well, that was one bill. Then I see, oh, well, we're taking the LGBTQ curriculum into schools and supporting that. I'm thinking, okay, well, there's another thing. All right, families need to know about this.
And
Then
why is an energy company doing that?
Exactly. Well, it's because part of the curriculum that our Department of Education supports has to do with the greed energy, the climate change, and the whole 9 yards. But then I see that Enbridge is really big into the ESG, or the environment, social, and governance credit scores, which we see under the Chinese credit system. So this is all coming at us from a seemingly innocent sale of my energy. When you look at your bill, the name probably is not going to change, the megawatt usage and all that, but what comes with it is something we didn't ask for.
That's right. We didn't ask for, and as important, I was about to say more, but it's really as important, we don't have any oversight of. So, and there may be people listening and say like, well, hey, private companies selling to, no, utilities are public utilities, and they are not
Exactly.
only regulated to the nth degree, and we're told that the utilities can't be private, because if they're private, they'll do terrible, horrible things that are against the whole population. But no. The government will take care of it for us, and they'll oversee it and make sure that the mean, greedy, nasty people with agendas don't circumvent our democracy, right?
Yeah,
Don't circumvent our
absolutely.
representative democracy.
Right.
And then you have a public utility that is supposed to be doing that, is not only not doing that, but it's actually facilitating the greedy gusses who are
It
implementing an
is.
agenda that we have no say in.
Right. Now, for those who love facts and figures, which I love facts, I'm not so much a figure gal, but I know there are people out there listening and probably watching, and they're going to want to have these numbers. Now, Dominion Energy's climate action plan, their long-term goal, my dear, is to have the emissions in greenhouse gases curtailed between 2036 and 2050. They committed to this in the early 2000s to become totally net zero. That's who owns our energy right now in the state of North Carolina. Now, your Dominion Energy may have a different branch, so you might want to check with your particular energy company. All right, Duke Energy, who sold to Dominion, a 50% reduction in carbon emissions from electricity alone by 2050, which means that 30,000 megawatts of our power here in the state must be branded as renewable by 2030. And then Enbridge, their net zero claim is to be every entity that they have net zero by 2050. Their climate change requires serious solutions. This is on their website, and they are well positioned across the world to achieve this net zero. And sustainability, where we heard that word before, is central to every bit of this plan, Deb, and everything that this company does. And they have huge lobbying power in local, state, and federal governments.
Right. Well, I think we should show some of our receipts, because you, as usual, have done your due diligence. Let me grab this stuff and we can walk through it.
Yeah.
All
Now,
right.
here's the interesting thing, and I think you're going to show this. This is from the North Carolina Utilities Commission. Now, remember, in the 2 notices I got, it said we're having all these public hearings. Well, if you go to this particular website that Deb has for you, you can look at the calendar. And I want you to see the number of public meetings that have now been canceled. So, Deb, if we were to want to show up and speak up, how could we if they cancel the meeting?
You can't.
Exactly.
No.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, we want to go on and be able to show you they have a hearing calendar. So any of these dates
Oh,
that
I'm
you
sorry.
want
I
to
hit the
see.
wrong.
No,
I'm
that's fine.
sorry, everyone. I
No.
hit the wrong button.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to point out
I
that
was
when
supposed to
you
hit share this one instead, and I hit
that's
stop
okay.
sharing.
That's quite all right.
All
But
right, here it
you
is.
know, but you
Oh,
showed
look,
folks, yeah,
canceled.
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 Look how many of these are canceled, and these are meetings that we, as a as a public citizen paying for these utilities, have every right to be able to use our First Amendment. But when you have the commission shutting it down, where's your recourse? I just want folks to think about that. We also need to understand that on this particular website that Deb has shown you, every bit of energy that is handled by the Utilities Commission, water, sewer, gas, electricity, these not only control our homes, but our schools. And when our schools are hooked into the green agenda, by having the U.S. Department of Education recognize them as a green ribbon school, of course, this is going to tie into education, but it doesn't stop there. It keeps going. But I'm going to slow down long enough to let folks know in the resources, you will find a 2003 study that the state of North Carolina supposedly conducted, but
Yes,
the level
ma'am.
of national groups that made themselves present at the table going, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, here you go. Here's how you get hooked into this global agenda. And the state fell for it because it
March
made,
2003.
yeah, because the state fell for it because it made perfect sense. Now, the irony is that our attorney general is now our governor. So think about that. The players that have been put in place in state government are not new to the party. They're not new to the agenda. They've been in key positions and just recycled. And if you think that former secretary, superintendents of education in your state are up to just being retired and going out in their garden and playing in the weeds, no. Just take, for example, our former state superintendent, Bev Perdue, knee deep in the data mining that attaches to student records.
Yeah.
So no good agenda person is going to waste in this overreaching arc of taking everything and
Yep.
attaching it to not what we the people voted for, but what the corporations and the public private partnerships want to do to support the United Nations.
Right. And you see how that voluntary green checkoff program, all the stuff. And there, there are people out there probably wondering, why would our politicians and our companies go for this? See, people have grown up believing that for-profit companies or companies that make money or have shareholders or what have you are always so profit driven they won't do quote the right thing. In other words, so then they go and think, well, green energy is the right thing because it's saving the planet, and therefore, why are they doing it? Well, first of all, a couple false premises. One, the false premise is that doing something that says called green or whatever doesn't benefit them financially. It does. This stuff is very expensive. It's very inefficient. They have all the excuses in the world to drive up the cost of energy. They have all the excuses in the world to limit your access to energy, which can save costs on distribution, et cetera. They can disguise it. They can disguise things that they're doing that actually jack up their earnings by saying you're having to use less to save the planet. So they can actually work less and employ fewer people if they wanted to, and employ, AI. There's so many things they can do that actually are benefiting them financially, and they just wrap it in a pretty dressing of how they're saving the planet. Second
Right.
thing, politicians do this because they get donations to get them elected. So they're in somebody's pocket. They're not out there caring more about the planet than another politician, just like the politician on the other side doesn't hate the planet so much as it likes the dollars coming in from the people who don't care about the whatever. The point is,
Right.
none of them are you don't assume that because conservation or green energy is linked to a good thing, that the people behind this either truly believe they're doing good for the world or that there's no financial benefit. That's a false assumption. Then you probably do have some true believers. somewhere in there. I don't think they're politicians, and I don't think they're C-level executives. But somewhere down the line, the middle managers are probably either just, I do what I'm told, I don't question it, it's a job, it's a paycheck, and that's probably most of them, or a few who are like, this is fabulous. I want to work for this company because they are reducing carbon emissions. Okay. So
Well, you also have to think about this as well, Deb, that we have the United Nations who is leading the charge in education by creating what's known as a change agent. And this is where you take strategically placed people from all walks of life and put them in positions of power and influence. And I'm going to bring up one of these people right now. This is a book that's available at your public library. Elizabeth Cripps, you may not know that name, but over in England, she is a former journalist and former lecturer at a higher education, well-esteemed university, but she has taken it upon herself to become a moral philosopher, and she's written a book on what? Climate change and why we should get militant, because if you look down at the bottom, you see all these people in masks, and
with
their
fists in the air.
Fists in the air. Now, the entire book is absolutely full of agenda points, and it ends with the entire point is not to do this to help your home or your school or your family, but to become a better global citizen.
That's right.
Okay, let me read you really quickly because I know we have a lot to share, but I want to really quickly read to you why I say this woman is a well-placed change agent, or she's acting like it. Okay. This is under the paragraph called Mitigation, Adaptation, and Compensation. Climate change does terrible damage to today's children and their descendants. Now, Deb, forget you and I. I mean, we just don't matter. It's our children and their descendants.
The children.
To millions of already vulnerable people the world over. So climate justice, which is taught in our schools as part of social justice,
of course,
requires preventing that harm, making up for it as far as possible. So that will take mitigation, adaptation, and compensation. And she goes in to break down for you exactly how to mitigate, how to adapt, how to compensate. But then here is the other thing as far as what I wanted to share with you out of this one book, that climate justice requires procedural justice. So this is where our lobbyists come in.
Yep.
And remember, Enbridge has a huge lobbying consortium, not just in America, not just in Canada, but the world over. Now, here's another book real quick at the local library, okay? Reduce, Reuse, and Reimagine. Now, it's in this particular book that you will find the psychology that's being used against us when it comes to recycling as well as our waste. And if you think about some of the hype that these energy companies come at us with, it's that we're wasting energy. It doesn't matter if we're being the most responsible consumer out there, we're still guilty somehow.
Well, Lynn, we exhale. I mean,
honey,
we're
fart
carbon
too,
producers, so how dare you exist, really?
Well,
I mean, when it comes right down to it, you should breathe less.
You breathe less, but you still fart. I mean, that's an emission as
methane.
well.
How dare you?
I know.
Yeah.
So don't eat your beans. Okay. But in chapter 7, this is how psychology affects recycling and waste. And she will tell you in this particular chapter that because we live in America, we are somehow more apt to use our moral license to justify our actions. So in other words, I'm going to recycle Monday through Friday, and then on Saturday, Sunday, I'm going to go out, drink a 6-pack, and throw my cans away. I'm not going to recycle. But I use my moral license I did it 5 days a week, so therefore I'm justified in creating more waste. this is and she tells you this is not only happening at a conscious level, but we're somehow unconsciously doing this in our families as well as at a corporate level. Now, she goes on to tell you that if you look at other countries, they're not near as morally loose as we are in America. I would argue that as well. But it also goes on to tell you that these corporate entities, these deals that we're talking about, selling energy companies and things related, that the corporate entities are taking on social judgments about us and our society, saying it's on our behalf, but without our input. So go back and think about that calendar with all those canceled meetings. Okay. Just think about that. And then if that's not damning
Ain't
enough,
democracy grand?
yeah, if that's not damning enough, she tells you that on page 98 that modern day, everyday mom and dad consumers are 60% responsible for the horrible use of our energy. I don't know if anyone is old enough to remember back in the 70s when we had all the protests about the DDT and all the crap that the corporations were putting into the air and pumping into our water. But
Yeah.
somehow we flipped tables and it's now my home is part of that 60%. Oh, please give me a break.
Well, they got to have somebody to blame. I mean, the whole grift is based on blaming somebody. So we look around, who's not in the grift and who do we not like? Yeah, them. It's their fault.
Absolutely.
The
Well,
middle
let's
class. The middle class is in
absolutely.
the way of achieving our communist revolutionary goals. We got to get rid of them.
Absolutely. Well, one of the big questions here is how does this relate to education? Well, we have from the Department of U.S. Education, as unconstitutional as it is, we have an entire green ribbon school movement that is devoted to
Yep.
making
Let me
not
bring
only
that
our
up.
schools green and climate change friendly, but somehow be part of that safer learning environment because after all, COVID killed a safe learning environment. So here's our green ribbon school. Now you can go back and look. This program's been going since about 2012. So this is not a new program at all, okay? But we have the head cheerleader, Secretary Cardona, who's put out a lovely, cheery video on YouTube, Deb, for every mom and dad and student in elementary school, daycare, or higher education to gaze upon to see how they can be a better green citizen.
And of course, recipients of the award are invited to a ceremony in Washington, D.C. They'll have to fly, most likely, where they receive a plaque, are the subject of media attention. Well, my goodness, everyone wants that. And have their efforts celebrated. Good person, good person, good people, bad people, good people, good people. Right. Uh-huh.
Good school, bad school is what it is.
Right. Other school, nobody can read at the school, but they're green. Other
That's
schools,
right.
in turn, learn from their practices. No, that what you mean to say is other schools are shamed into doing what they do. In
That's
addition to communicating school sustainability practices, the award uses a small number of honorees each year to share. Notice they said uses.
yeah.
Okay. To
Yeah.
share resources that all schools can employ through its Green Stride School Sustainability Resource Hub. Now, I personally would like to point out that when they say schools to sustainability, they mean keeping schools in existence. They're not really interested in having schools contribute to sustaining the environment. They just want to house so many functions of what they consider to be necessary governance in the school. They just want to justify their own existence. Whenever you see school sustainability, you should hear justifying our existence.
Right. Now in 2024, only 2 North Carolina schools were mentioned, but let's go on to face it. This program has been going since 2012. There have been other North Carolina schools. And remember, this is not a problem that is exclusive to North Carolina. Absolutely not, because we all use energy and we're all being told that we have to somehow, by choice or force, reduce our carbon footprint. Well, this is one of the big ways that it's coming into you from the back door, but they're going to use the school to help drive the agenda, because the U.S. Department of Transportation, the U.S. Department of Energy, all kinds of federal agencies and non-government organizations attached to our state government are in on this as well.
This word free resources, they're not free. So taxpayer dollars have paid for all of this. Like, there's a website, if there are resources, if there are programs, that if there's a staff that created those resources and those programs. So when I say school sustainability, they need to, their enrollment's down. Attitudes have never been more negative against public education. People are calling for the abolition of the Department of Education, and they are trying to sustain their mandate. They want to justify continuing to exist. So if they keep employing more and more people, producing more and more resources that they then give away, which is your tax dollars being given away, they can go, but, this is so important. Look, free resources, school health research library. I wonder what all's in there.
Well, Deb, let's point out one thing, okay? It's one thing to say, I want to end the Department of Education, but we need to understand this huge, glaring fact that no one, from those running for president to those running for city council, they don't understand that just because you shut down one department will not get rid of the problem, because the Department of Education has partnered with the Department of Transportation, the Department of Labor, the Department of Energy, the State Department, the U.S. Treasury. They have partnered with every single federal agency, so that if and when whoever Yahoo gets elected and shuts down the department, all those other agencies can swoop in, take their piece of the
Health
pie.
and Human Services, FDA.
Right. They can take their piece of the pie and still keep the government control. So this garbage will not go away if you simply shut down one. I have described it as such. You walk into a dark room, turn on the light, and watch the cockroaches scatter. That will be what happens if you just get rid of one department. It's not going to solve it. So
$1 trillion in a big bucket is still going to be $1 trillion in a big bucket. They're just going to find other places to empty the bucket.
Absolutely.
Do you want to look at the Enbridge stuff? What would you like to look at next?
No, let's show them Cardona's glowing poster boy video.
Second, let me grab him. He's so spicy.
Oh yes. Oh look.
Okay. So here he is. Let me
in all his purpleness.
In all his purpleness. Hopefully the sound is gonna come through. Let me make sure. It should be. Okay. It should be coming through. All right. If you can't hear it, let me know. But here is Miguel.
And today I'm excited to announce the 2024 U.S. Department of Education Green Ribbon Schools. I couldn't be prouder of the work this year's awardees have done to earn such a meaningful recognition. I'd like to begin by reflecting on why we have this program at the Department of Education and why it matters. More than a decade ago, dozens of national and state organizations collaborated with the department to create this award to boost environmental sustainability in our schools and to highlight the way that modern, healthy, efficient school facilities, environmental education, and wellness practices can increase student achievement and educational equity.
I have to stop. There's my brain has a limited capacity to process word salad because it actually functions properly in a linear manner. But anyway, I have to mention, he says, because green practices contribute to improving student outcomes. And then he very quickly says, and equity.
Yep.
And so you don't stop and notice that, how exactly is using the air conditioning less, making the kids read better? We're just going to say words. I'm going to say a bunch of words that you want to hear. Improve student outcomes.
They're the touchy-feely words that parents have been groomed to listen for, because somehow it gives the image that the Department of Education really gives a fig about Johnny and Susie.
Yeah, wellness practices can increase. They don't, but maybe
they could.
They could, but
so that's the cover your butt moment.
Yeah. All right. So here we go. Sorry.
Today, the program is thriving thanks to strong support among diverse stakeholders from education.
The program is thriving,
Oh,
not the students. The program is thriving.
and don't
Educators to
forget
advocates
those
to-
stakeholders.
Yes, stakeholders. They're very important. Yeah, I send my child to school. I don't send my child, but if I sent my child to school, it wouldn't be so stakeholders could get that I didn't elect could get involved in that.
Right.
and especially to our nation's young people. This year's awardees range from early learning centers to post-secondary institutions. They include public, private, rural, and urban schools and districts. Notably, 50% are located in under-resourced.
What's an under-resourced community?
He
That's
doesn't
a
tell
euphemism.
you.
Under-resourced.
Yeah, he doesn't tell you. He doesn't define this for you. He'll use
Nope.
it, but he won't define it. But what it means is they've not gotten on board yet, or they've
Right.
not been coerced into it. But we're
Well,
getting
and the
ready
other thing
to,
is, how is it that with $1 trillion budget, we have any under-resourced districts or
we
communities?
shouldn't. We absolutely shouldn't.
How many years? I'm pretty sure that LBJ started the Great Society program before I was born, and I'm almost 60. So how many years has it been that they've been fighting poverty and dealing with these under-resourced communities, and they still have them? Maybe it's time to do something different. Like, don't do that stuff anymore.
But it's interesting you bring that up because he was a raging Democrat. We've had raging Republicans since then. And sweetie, did they ever stop it? Did they change it?
No,
Nope. They kept it going.
that is right. All right, sorry.
communities. They represent thousands of students and countless hours of hard work in schools and on college campuses, ensuring equitable access to healthy, climate-resilient learning environments where students are prepared for the sustainability challenges of the present and future.
The students are prepared for the sustainability challenges.
Mm.
Really? These are kids whose feelings are hurt if you use red marker to grade their paper. I'm not sure if they're prepared for challenges of any kind, really, honestly. No, what they've been is they've been exposed. They've been exposed to certain deprivation. They've been exposed to expectations to comply. They're getting very good at complying and acquiescing and being apathetic and just doing as they're told. Maybe that, yeah.
But that's part of the goal, sweetie. Change the
know.
attitudes, the values, and the beliefs.
Right.
Don't teach critical thinking. Teach what
Critical
to think.
theory.
Yeah, teach what to think, not how to. And this is why you have people who, you're right, if they're faced with a true conundrum,
Yeah.
they cannot think their way out of a paper bag, but yet somehow the parent is the one who's guilty of, well, you're dumber than dirt. You can't think your way out of a paper bag. How the heck do you think you're going to take care of a family?
Well, the sad part is most people, and I've met some people even close to my own age, who don't even know that there are rational arguments against all of this. So in other words, they truly believe,
Right.
and this is what our students are being taught, they
Yes.
truly believe that only bad, mean people who want to dump toxic waste in the ocean and pollute the air
Mhm.
oppose these programs. And they have never even heard, nor will they entertain. They'll be like, blah, 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 blah. They won't listen to any rational argument against these things. It's a complete foreign language to them. So that's what they're
Well,
prepared for.
Absolutely. Now, one of the other key partners to all of this is the EPA. And we've known for a long time that they are just absolutely one of the most recognized groups by the UN.
Right.
And if you go and look at their climate action, oh, good Lord.
And that is in here.
Okay, sweetie, that will be, that will be under number 7. This entire document, okay, I cannot tell you, it's from 1970. And look at this.
1970.
Look at this. It's
EPA,
a single.
the United Nations Environment Program. The only good news about this is that it took this long. Okay, but that also shows you how committed they are.
Well, absolutely. But this is a one-page document. So thankfully it's not, like some of the other ones that we've featured where it's thousands and hundreds of pages. This is just one and done. But so if you ever think that this is, a brand new thing, no, This is why it has been such a gradual change. This is why you're seeing exactly what you just said. People close to your age, people close to my age, who are thinking, oh, there's nothing wrong with all this. Well, why do you think so? Because they were in school when that was written.
That's right.
I mean, let's see, back in 1970, I was in, wait a minute, no, this is 72. Oh, I don't know. No, okay, yes, this is 1972. Okay, I was in 5th grade. Did the teachers come out and say, oh, this is what we're going to do? No, because no teacher would have back then.
They just tell you it's important. And people need to remember too, Lynn, the UN's mandate and and UNESCO specifically is, world peace. I was basically like, we're going to make the world more peaceful. Now, their argument behind all of this, because if you're at home saying, why is the UN even involved in any of this? Here's why. The premise is, the claim is that people go to war when fill in the blank isn't properly managed and equally distributed and everybody isn't equal, then that's why people go to war. And if you buy into that premise, you're going to support all of this because you will believe the lie that, first of all, a small group of people who are unelected can go sit in a building and know all the things they would need to know just from their own country, never mind all the other countries and regions and so forth, to know to manage the world so perfectly that no one would want to be violent against their neighbors or even themselves. And that's a crazy thing to believe. The second thing is to actually buy into the notion that somebody goes, this is what Hitler said. It wasn't really, had nothing to do with world conquest and ego and narcissism and miscalculation. No, he just felt like Germany, it was really unfair to Germany that they didn't have proper equal access to resources. And they're weren't educated by a global entity to teach them to be nice people. Because if they had been, well, we wouldn't have had Nazism. Really?
Yeah. We'd have had some other ism. We absolutely would have.
Last time I checked, Iran was in the UN.
Yeah.
And on the Human Rights Council, no less.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we also need to understand that the sustainability, the SDG, the Sustainable Development Goal Toolkit was created at the University of Tennessee, go Vols. And the professor was like, the whole attitude of it, Deb, was, well, if we put this as the UN wants America to do A, B, C, and D, Americans won't go for it. But if we twist it so that it's Americans doing it to Americans, they'll love it. And guess what? We have.
That's right.
We absolutely have. All right. I want us to move on because this is going to, as far as how this impacts education, when you start messing with electricity and gas and water and all the things that help your school keep going, whether it's a brick and mortar school or it's a hybrid school or it's your own home, we need to understand that our state has stuck itself on stupid when it comes to, we're now going to put your precious baby into an electric school bus, and it's going to cost that one school bus, Deb, $430,000.
Yeah.
We could take that money, buy some people a house, and get them off the street. But no, we're going to put it into an electric bus. And if you look at the safety record of electric buses, that it is awful. But I'm going to trust that my child's going to be okay on this school bus, that it's not going to break down. What if it breaks down in a bad neighborhood? What if it blows up?
Well, there's that. They were already telling us our lives are not as important as the trees the school bus is driving under.
Right.
But over 400, almost $500,000 for a single bus.
One bus, sweetie.
So then when you have multiple.
But our economy's fine. Oh, yes.
No, just our county alone, Mecklenburg County just passed I think it was like a $2.3 billion operating budget.
Well, isn't that where this first school bus, the first electric school bus
Probably, but we have hundreds and hundreds of buses. So what good is one going to do?
Oh,
Oh,
because
that's right.
it's
It's an
such an
activities bus. It's
example.
an activities bus.
Oh, but think it's such an example, and Cardona could go stick a green ribbon on it.
Oh my God.
Oh, Lenore. Okay, so that's up in the mountains. Okay, so this
Yes.
is up in the mountains. Caldwell County is the first school
So
district
in a
in the
rural
state.
district,
Oh, yes.
we have a $430,000 activity bus for field trips and sporting events. It was
And it's
awarded the bus and a
oh,
charging
oh,
station.
oh, but it doesn't use taxpayer money, Deb, so it's okay. Well,
Oh my God.
who the heck is paying for it? You want to know? The energy company. The very one who just said, I'm going to sell the citizens out to a Canadian company.
Yeah, I'm not down with that, honestly. That is not okay.
I understand. And then if you are concerned about your lovely, lovely offspring going into into an electric school bus, when you
Mhm.
go to this particular website, it'll show you the model that is, it's called the Achiever. It is the type A electric school bus. So does that
Oh,
mean there's a type B or a type C? What does that mean? Oh, and
oh my
here's
God.
how they spin the article. As with any other school bus purchase, it's important to consider safety first when adding electric buses to your fleet. Okay, I don't sit on the school bus purchasing committee for my county, but I can tell you that safety concerns usually are not what tops the list. It's how much money does it cost?
That's right. And then we have our charming governor visiting the bus facility in Durham to highlight the recent significant federal funding for electric school
Oh,
buses. The governor was joined by representatives of blah, blah, blah. And the funding awarded by the Environmental Protection. So if you think you can get rid of the Department of Education, everything's fine. The EPA's Clean School Bus Grant Program amounts to
yep.
$26.7 million and will
Mhm.
provide 114 new electric school buses to school districts throughout North Carolina. Guys, that is spit in the ocean. If you truly believe their jargon about how poisonous these diesel school buses are, then 114 buses, when we send out 114 buses in Charlotte alone, minimum every day.
Well,
Every day.
here's the other thing that we need to consider going back to this safety. Number one on the list is the battery. Have you seen the size of the battery? Have you
It's like
figured
half the
out
bus.
have you figured out the fact that it's lithium, and 95% of the lithium that's harvested is from forced child labor in other countries?
Yeah.
But we're going to be okay with this.
Well, how about
No.
the EMFs? How about your child sitting on top of
Right.
that giant battery on the way to school, which again, even in my county, it is not uncommon. It's in fact extremely common for a child to sit on the bus for 45 minutes each way.
Well, what do you do with all that magnetization and thermalization? Let's say if you have a special need that is impacted by all those things.
Yeah.
Okay. What the heck are you going to do for your
Well, it's
child
okay,
then?
Lynn, because over 98% of these buses will be deployed in prioritized school districts in low income, rural, and tribal communities. In other words, the kids they care less about in terms of, I mean, I don't mean to sound, but let's face it, they test
Right.
these kids, they use these kids as subjects of experiments, and they always have, and they always will. They know good and damn well that they're not putting this in Myers Park,
Right.
and they'll say it's because, well, they would put it in the underprivileged. All that the kids in the low income school district care about is having transportation.
Well,
They are not
this
sitting there
is
going, well,
not
I'd love a ride to school, but I'm not going to put greenhouse
right.
gases into the air.
But this is not the first time our government has targeted low income students for anything. If you look at how Head Start was created, if you look at the number of groups who have taken those children and put them in studies to see how well their outcomes are in life,
I have
it's
a question.
yes, ma'am.
Okay, now I grant you this is the governor's own website.
Yes, ma'am.
But once the governor is the governor, isn't it considered bad form to politic on the government website?
Yeah.
I mean, he's not campaigning. It's not a
No.
campaign website. This is what we all pay
No.
for equally, even the people who didn't vote for him. And I'm one of those. So
Yeah.
why is it classified as a public school emergency? Now, you and I both know I'm against vouchers. We're both against vouchers.
Right. Absolutely.
But why?
It's an emergency. Why is it even an emergency?
Why are we even having this conversation? And why it says an official website of the state of North Carolina, he's
We
politicking.
pay for that. Yeah.
He's
We pay for that.
politicking on a taxpayer funded website. I don't think that's allowed. Last time I checked, I didn't think that was allowed. And this is taking a political position. There's no question that
Partisan.
vouchers being for them, et cetera, is at this point a political position. Everything to do with education is really.
Well,
but
absolutely it is.
this
And
is especially political. There are people
Well,
on both sides who oppose it. For the governor to take a firm stance for it on the government website is very bad form, in my opinion.
well, absolutely, because you're not speaking for all your constituents. You're only speaking to a certain few, and that's just not the way it's supposed to work.
Well,
But
why would it weaken? Well, I mean, that's a different topic for another day, but
Oh, I know.
he goes on. So anyway, what's next?
Well, I wanted folks to think about this. We said that Enbridge, who's going to end up owning our energy, and not just North Carolina, but other states as well, they're really big into the ESG, which is the environmental and the social and the governance scores, which tie into the credit scores. I have an image, then that'll be in the archives, but I have an image, and this came to me from out of England.
Okay, let me grab that.
Where they are really using this. And so for folks who don't understand how this plays into your energy bill or your energy consumption.
Let me grab the image.
Sure. It's part of your usage. So when we're being blamed for 60% of the consumer use, it would go into our ESG score, maybe as a family, but more so as a state.
Right.
And so that is just one of the ways. And it goes on to tell you, this is from a public company disclosure that this particular image is. And if you can't get it, that's fine. It's up on the, it'll be,
it's the one with the rainbow colors. Is that what I'm looking for?
The circle. Yeah, the circle.
Yeah. And I went and I downloaded it, and now it's like
it's not coming up.
No, but it's okay. I know where to find it. So
that's fine.
Okay.
But I'll just walk folks through it, and then in the archive they can have it. But it will tell you that environmental covers your resource use, your emissions, and how well your community has innovated. Okay. Social, workforce, human rights, community, product responsibility. Well, we know that according to this, climate action and all that stuff is part of our human rights. And then governance, management, shareholders, and the CSR strategy, which has to do with business as well. So this will tell you that over 450 measurements, and these will all be data points, Deb, are going to be used against us from a public company like a utility company. And we shouldn't be concerned. We shouldn't think, oh, this has nothing to do with education.
No, this is how ESG the social credit score is going to get in.
Well, and attached to this is the data mining. The human rights cover education as well. So it's going to be in the student information as far as what's data mined as well. So we need to point that out for folks as well. Hang on just a second. Let me see what else. Okay, Grandma, let's see here. Sorry, I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to myself.
No, you're cracking me up though.
Okay, we also want to point out this, as we have said, you brought up Johnson, and I said, hey, we have the Republicans who have done this as well.
Well, he could have done it without them. If they had been a real opposition party, it wouldn't have happened.
Well, exactly. But back in 2017, we have an attachment that was from the USMCA, or the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Agreement. And remember, Enbridge is a Canadian company. So this very much plays into the USMCA. Trump is the one who signed that agreement. It is under the Congress that was serving under the Trump administration that passed public law, federal law, to adhere us into everything that agreement spelled out. So energy plays very much into that USMCA, which replaced NAFTA. But what the USMCA also did was it took some of the UN regionalism, applied it to America so that Americans are not necessarily making decisions for Americans. Henceforth, a Canadian company that will now come in and control your energy. Oh, but that's because it was Trump, and Trump is a good guy. Oh, are you kidding me? Biden's no better. Okay, neither one of these two idiots is fit to lead our country. Absolutely. Neither one of them were the first time, and they certainly aren't the second time. But they're going to ride the coattails of the agenda to convince you that they're the better dude.
Yep. That's
Sorry,
right.
just had to throw that in there.
Well,
okay.
no, but I mean, that it's sad because
Well, it really is.
everybody's appealing to emotions, and nobody is, looking at what is really happening to our country is that we are losing our sovereignty, we are losing our liberty. And when I say we are losing, we're more than halfway to having lost it.
Right. Well, we need, since we picked on Trump, let's pick on Biden. And let's be fair in our exposure of the unibrow. We have from 2023, this will also be in the archives for you. Everything we've talked about and even more will be in the archives for your audience. But this is from 2023. This is further cementing America into the USMCA as well as to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And this was a little known document called the Declaration of North America, or DNA. Oh,
DNA. Oh, no.
Yes. Now, if you want to show folks this particular resource, Deb, this will be under number 13.
Under number 13.
Yeah, it'll say it'll be that first link. But it tells you that we have a Spanish, let's see, we have the Mexican president, we have the American president, and then we have the prime.
I find it.
That's okay. So we have the three people who signed the USMCA, the Mexican president, the American president, who didn't sign it but is backing it up, and then we have the prime minister of Canada. All right. They met in Mexico City for the 10th North American Leaders Summit, or NALS. They determined to fortify our region, not our nation, Deb, our region's security, prosperity, sustainability, and inclusiveness through the commitment to 6 pillars: diversity, equity, and inclusion, climate change and the environment, competitiveness, migration, development, health, and regional security. And it goes on to tell you how they will play this out in each of those 6 pillars. It will also go on to tell you that North America shares a unique history and culture that emphasizes innovation, equitable development, and mutually beneficial trade to create inclusive economic opportunities for the benefit of our people. Really? If you want to benefit the people, get the hell out of politics and start listening to the people.
Well, yes. And every time somebody opens their mouth, and they do it roughly every 5 seconds, so it shouldn't be, hard to find somebody doing this, to talk about saving our democracy. I mean, first of all, we don't have one of those, but they don't care about your voice. If you think that democracy means that it's self-governance, you have a say in how your tax dollars are being spent, how your elected officials are making decisions that dramatically impact your life. No, you do not. Meetings like this happen every single day. They talk about you. They talk about how they're going to do things that will change the course of your existence. And you don't know about it unless you hear it from somebody like Lynn or me or whatever, because even the journalists don't know. I promise you, if you rounded up most of the key journalists at the New York Times and Atlantic and the Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, Fox News, wherever, CNN, and said, do you know what the Declaration of North America was? It's just a year old. They won't know.
Well, here we have one of the last things that I wanted to point out was that both parties are using the electric buses for schools, or the electric vehicles for you and I, to kind of go to war with each other And one more time, prop up China as our biggest enemy when China's not our biggest enemy. You want to know who our biggest enemy is? It's our own government.
That's right.
It's our own bloody government.
That is a fact.
All right, my dear. Well, that is everything that I have. The scoop on the poop, if you want to call it that. But that's everything I have.
That's it.
For right now. Yeah, for right now.
I think just the I'll put all the links. There's more. There's stuff from PubMed. Can the improvement of the social credit environment enhance corporate ESG scores?
That one's huge because that gives you from the business, especially the data mining aspect of why these companies want so much for all of us to have that ESG score. Yes.
It really boggles the mind because it's not like there's anything attached to that ESG score. It is like Enron. It's fake.
Yeah.
It's fake. It doesn't mean anything. Some people sat around in a building and decided what it would be and what the scores would be. And companies are rushing headlong into destroying themselves, destroying their
arbitrary garbage. Yep, absolutely.
Made by people who don't know how to make anything, don't know how to build anything, don't know anything except how to tell other people how to live. It's sort of like revenge of the C students who knew they couldn't go out in the world and actually do anything. So they found a job as a bureaucrat.
Yeah. Or you could be like this person and turn your journalism into being able to lecture at a well-known university and then decide, oh, I'm going to go out here and pretend to be your moral compass because after all, you're just too stupid to know what a moral compass is. But let me show you. Let me point you to the agenda because if you're not going to find it by yourself, I'm going to help you.
Lynn, I really think we have mass produced a certain kind of narcissism that is just really terrifying.
Oh, absolutely it is.
We've mass produced it. I mean, it's now like every third person, it feels like, is a person who feels 100% justified in saying that somebody else knows better than you how to live your life.
And here's the thing, and this is the one beef. Oh, well, I have several beefs with it, but the biggest beef that I have with social justice is because I was able to sit down in an interview with the civil rights icon, Clarence Henderson. And he is just as upset about the modern day social justice. And here's why. Because he said, look, when he and his buddies sat down at that lunch counter in Greensboro, they did it peaceably and to make a point. There was no shouting. There were no posters. It was just done effectively and quiet and to stand up for everyone.
Exactly.
What we're seeing happen now is a militant bullying to the point of, well, if you don't get on my bus or my train of thought, I'm going to make you get on my train of thought and you're going to like it. So it's kind of like Klaus, where he says, you're going to eat bugs and you're going to like it. You're going to own nothing.
Exactly.
You're going to like it. Well, it's taking that, and this is being inserted into our children because they're coming home to mom and dad. Oh, you're using electricity. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
But everything's okay. It's all good. Yeah, nothing to see. Where are your flames? I mean,
it's crazy.
It is. Okay. Well, that's
all right
for everyone.
So there's that.
Yeah, there is.
Which is nice. All right. So everybody, please like, share, and subscribe. All right. So like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. Subscribe to Lynne's blog, CommonCoreDiva.com. Make sure you're following CommonCore Diva on X. She posts a lot of things over there as well to alert you to new articles. Check back here because we do try to do something roughly once a month whenever you've come up from your rabbit hole of choice for the month. And remember that for both of us, this is self-funded work. So Lynne has, do you still have your bumper stickers?
I still have my anti-school choice info kits. And I tell you what, it is absolutely just mind-boggling, the number of people who are just jumping on that bus going, oh, this is going to give us so much more freedom. No,
Yeah,
the
no.
goal of school choice is to eradicate your right to vote. You really want to vote this into place?
That's
You
right.
think we have top-down control now? Let school choice go through, and you're going to see how quick your representative form of government disappears.
That is correct. That is correct. They want you to just acquiesce to the idea that you aren't smart enough to know what's best for you. You don't need to vote. We know what's best for you. What are you talking about?
Well,
We're just
honey, we
nice.
vote now. Do you think it really makes a difference?
No. Do they vote in China? Okay. So there
They
you go.
voted in Russia. They did.
Yeah.
They
Wow.
voted
That
in
did a lot
Russia.
of good. That
Oh,
did a lot of
didn't
good.
it though? They
Yeah.
got to vote, and guess what? Their leader was still chosen for them. But we've been doing that for decades here. So,
Yeah. It's,
ooh,
yep.
anyway. But yes,
Election theater.
I do have the school choice info kits, and also if people just want to, offset the hours and hours of research that I do, there's a regular donation tab as well
Yep.
on the website.
Very good. All
But
right.
better
So
yet, invite us to come speak. We'll come do a 1-2 punch for you guys. We would absolutely love
absolutely.
to.
Absolutely. So but in the meantime, watch this and share it with everybody, make sure they know what's going on. And it's not just North Carolina. We presented
Oh
North Carolina to you today. I bet if you spent about 10 minutes on the internet, you could find this stuff in your utility company and what's going on with your state too, because they are pushing for this from the Department of Education, as you just saw. So you're not immune because you don't live in this state.
that's right.
Okay.
You also are not immune because you also use energy, and your energy is probably either for sale or about to be on sale. So watch what's going on.
Correct. Be careful. All right, Lynn, thank you so much. Have a
You're
great day,
welcome.
everyone, and we'll see you next time.